The knife slipped in the frosting with a soft, wet hiss. Lemon and raspberry. Exactly the way I dreamed at 3 in the morning on a base in Kuwait when chow hall cake tasted like cardboard and home felt like a rumor. The reception hall smelled like sugar, eucalyptus from the centerpieces, and someone's cheap perfume that clung to the air every time the doors opened. "Ready?" Ethan murmured at my shoulder, his hand warm over mine on the cake knife. I nodded, even though a part of me was somewhere else, locked on the front rows of the ceremony I'd walked past an hour earlier. 4 rows on the left side, 40 chairs with little white cards, Mom, Dad, Adam, Aunt Lisa, Uncle Ben, Grandma. 40 chairs that had stayed perfectly, painfully empty. I could still feel the way my chest had tightened when I came around the corner of the glass conservatory, dress whispering around my ankles, bouquet trembling in my hands. Sunlight had poured through the greenhouse roof, catching the dust in the air and the faces of the people who had shown up. Ethan's parents, my clinic nurses, 3 soldiers from my last deployment, my nonprofit board, Megan from next door in the dress she'd texted me about a dozen times, and then the other side, the Whitmore side. Empty chairs like missing teeth. "Eyes on me," Ethan had whispered when he saw my face falter. His jaw set, then softened. "You're marrying me. They're optional." I had locked my eyes on his and walked. I kept walking now, into the reception, through the clink of glasses and the flash of cameras, through the pile of cards on the gift table with neat script, to Lex and Ethan, with love, conspicuously missing my family's curling, performative handwriting. We cut the cake. The crowd cheered. Sugar and berry and tart lemon burst on my tongue, a shock of brightness that almost hurt. "See?" Ethan said, wiping a smudge of frosting off my nose with a thumb. "You did it. You made it here, with or without them." The band in the corner started a Motown cover. My clinic nurses started a conga line. The little girl from my first rural pap smear day, now 11 and braver than half the adults I knew, held up her phone to film us. For 2 minutes, I let myself drift. Just me, just him. Just this weird, fragile bubble of joy we'd built out of leave forms, Gantt charts, and weekend site visits. Then my phone buzzed against my hip. Once. Then again. Then again. A low, insistent vibration against the side of my dress like a trapped bee. I tried to ignore it. For 31 years, my reflex had been to answer. "What did you do, Lex? Why did you say that? Can you pick up Adam? Can you call the florist?" Always fixing, always interpreting, always running triage on their feelings while mine bled out quietly somewhere off stage. "Do you need to get that?" Ethan asked, reading my face the way he read a faulty circuit board, patiently as if the problem wasn't me, just the wiring. "No," I said, automatic. The buzzing didn't stop. I sighed. "Let me just make sure nothing's on fire in my clinics," I added. 5 seconds. We stepped toward the side of the room near a big fern and the French doors that led to the patio. The air shifted cooler by the glass. A thin line of November chill snuck in when a cousin opened the door to smoke. I pulled my phone out from the tiny pocket in my dress. The screen made my stomach drop and burn all at once. 52 missed calls. Dad, 8, Mom, 17, Adam, 9 unknown numbers, Richmond area code, 18. At the top of the thread, a fresh text from my father glared in gray bubbles. "Dad, what did you do? Not congratulations, not we're so sorry we couldn't make it. Not even we're proud of you, kiddo. Just the same accusatory opener I'd been fielding since I was old enough to stand between my brother and a tantrum." "What is it?" Ethan asked. I showed him the screen. His jaw tightened. "So they remembered what day it is," he said dryly. A laugh bubbled up in my throat, sharp as glass. On instinct, my thumb hovered over my father's name, ready to call back, ready to ask, "What's wrong? What can I fix?" Before I could move, another call came in, flashing over the text. Megan Hale, home. Our old next-door neighbor. The girl I'd climbed trees with. The one who'd shown up early this afternoon with bobby pins and a travel-sized bottle of stress relief spray. "Hey," I answered, forcing cheer into my voice. "Are you okay? Did you get home safe?" I pressed a hand over my other ear. The DJ had just cranked the music, and my nurses were trying to start a limbo contest with the cake knife. "Lex," Megan's voice came through, thin and tinny under a wash of background music. "Where are you?" "At my wedding," I said. then realized how it sounded. I mean, reception. Why? I know, she said. I'm at Adam's thing. Of course she was. The rooftop engagement party 2 blocks from here. Same time, same city. Same night I'd given my parents 12 months' notice for. In the distance through the glass, past the conservatory's twinkling lights, I could see the faint outline of the hotel where my family had chosen to be instead of here. What's going on? I asked. Megan lowered her voice. "On gets me a lot," she said. Your mom's been telling people you scheduled your wedding to sabotage the engagement? That you purposely picked today because you're jealous? She's crying and saying you wouldn't move it, and everyone's asking where you are and why you're making her so upset. My heart thudded. I pressed my fingertips into the back of a chair. She's saying what? I asked. You know Mrs. Calloway from church? Megan rushed on. She just told me she's so worried about Susan because you're acting out. And your dad keeps saying he doesn't understand what you did and that you've put them in a terrible position. What did you do? There it was. The text made sense now. They weren't asking what I'd done to myself. They were asking what I'd done to them. And someone said, Megan continued, that you stormed off and refused to come, and that you're making them look bad. They keep saying you were supposed to be here and you chose not to? I closed my eyes. Air pressed in around me. The conservatory's glass walls felt suddenly tighter, like the whole building had shrunk. I saw the past year in a flash. The date I'd booked, the deposit, the planning calls. The text from Mom 2 weeks later. Oh, honey, we will make it work, of course. Family first. Adam's casual announcement at Sunday dinner while I was on FaceTime from Fort Riley. We found the perfect rooftop for our engagement party. The 18th, same day you guys picked, but that's okay, right? We'll stagger times. Dad's laugh. We'll figure it out. We always do. Always. By we, they'd meant me. Lex, Megan said. Are you there? Yeah, I said. My voice sounded far away in my own ears. I could smell frosting and eucalyptus and the faint salt of my own skin under perfume. I'm here. They're expecting you, Megan said. Like, to come over and fix it? People keep saying she'll be here, she always comes through. Your mom told Tara's parents you'd probably leave your reception after the ceremony to do the right thing. Of course she had. For 3 decades, doing the right thing had meant stacking chairs, refilling punch bowls, and absorbing fallout while they smiled for photos. The old version of me would have already been halfway to the door. I imagined it. Ripping off my heels, hiking up my dress, running 2 blocks through the cool evening to the rooftop where my family was performing pain. Apologizing, comforting, taking responsibility for a choice I hadn't made. The image made something low and stubborn flare inside me. Lex? Ethan's voice was close, a hand on my elbow steadying me. But what's going on? I opened my eyes. He was right there. So was the cake. So were the people who had shown up, who'd reordered shifts and flights and babysitters to be here. Behind him, my commanding officer from Fort Riley was teaching a group of grandmothers how to line dance in dress shoes. One of my clinic patients, hair regrowing after chemo, was crying into a napkin next to the photo booth because she had never seen someone like me get something good. They were here. My family wasn't. That choice was made. The question was whose story I was going to live inside tonight. Meg, I said slowly, feeling each word land, thank you for telling me, really. I just thought you should know they're talking about you like you... I know, I cut in gently. I'm not surprised. She hesitated. So, are you coming over? She asked. The old reflex was still there, even in her. Even in someone who'd watched me patch that household back together 100 times as kids. Just for a minute, to calm them down, people are starting to pick sides. In my father's text thread, the notification banner still hung at the top of the screen. What did you do? For the first time, it hit me how warped that question was. What did I do? I booked a wedding. They booked a conflict. They chose. I hadn't done anything except refuse to erase myself. For the first time in my life, I heard myself say, they can wait. Silence on the line. Then, softly, "Good," Megan said. "Good." I blinked. "You think so?" I asked. "I love them," she said. "But I also watched you mop up their fights and failures since we were 8. I'm literally on a rooftop in heels because they chose this date, not because you made some evil plan. Stay at your wedding, Lex." Then tears pricked behind my eyes, hot and surprising. "I'm sorry they're putting you in the middle," I said. "I can leave," she replied. I could hear music behind her, some generic DJ track, laughter, the clink of glasses. "I already told 3 people the truth. I'm not going to spin it." Truth. I'd spent my career fighting for ugly facts and medical charts to be written, for women's health notes not to be sanitized, for soldiers' symptoms not to be minimized to keep numbers pretty. It was time to apply that same stubbornness at home. "Thank you," I said again, "for telling me, for staying honest." "You deserve your day," she replied. "I'll call you tomorrow or next week, whenever you're ready." "We'll be on a beach," I said, a laugh escaping me. "But yeah, call me anyway." "Go celebrate," she said. "I'm hanging up before I get recruited to pass around another tray of shrimp." We disconnected. The screen dropped back to my father's text thread. One gray bubble glared up at me like an accusation. "What did you do?" My thumb hovered. For 31 years, I'd answered that question by contorting myself into whatever shape made everyone calmest. Tonight, I tried something different. I pressed the side button. The screen went dark. The buzzing stopped. Just like that, the silence changed. It wasn't the heavy, loaded kind from the empty chairs at the front of the ceremony. It was light, spacious, a choice. I slid the phone back into my pocket. Ethan's hand found the small of my back. "Well," he asked, "fire? Flood? Plague of locusts?" "Just my family," I said. "Existing." "Do they need you to perform triage on their drama?" he asked. "Yes," I said, desperately. "And are you going to?" he asked. I looked past him at the dance floor, the tables, the women from my clinic laughing with my platoon sergeant, my nonprofit board chair debating the merits of different frosting types with the bartender. "Not tonight," I said. The words tasted like lemon and steel. "Tonight, I'm going to cut cake, dance badly, and kiss my husband. The rooftop can burn without me." He studied my face for a second, then smiled slowly, like sunrise. "That," he said, "is the hottest thing you've ever said to me." I snorted, the knot in my chest loosening another notch. We walked back toward the center of the room. Someone handed me a champagne flute. Someone else grabbed Ethan's arm and spun him into a circle of people clapping. I let myself be pulled. Lemon, raspberry, and laughter, and the squeak of dress shoes on polished floor blurred into a soft, humming whole. Inside, a part of me still flinched at the thought of what my parents were telling people, what version of me they were constructing 2 blocks away. But another part, the part that had stared down commanders in dusty tents and told them no, we couldn't just reuse the sutures, sat back, crossed her arms, and said, "Let them talk. You have work to do." Work that finally, gloriously, didn't include cleaning up their mess in real time. I didn't know it yet, but that tiny act, switching off my phone instead of sprinting across town, would be the quiet fault line that reshaped the next year of my life. The rooftop party would end. Their stories would spread. But tonight, for the first time, my story didn't stop for theirs. I twirled under a string of lights, dress swishing, Ethan's hand steady in mine, and thought, this is what it feels like to let a fire burn that you didn't start, and refuse to be the one who grabs the hose. The next morning, my phone looked like a crime scene. I woke to light knifing through the cheap hotel curtains, Ethan snoring softly beside me, the air smelling like stale champagne and hairspray. My head throbbed in that happy, cottony way that meant I'd danced on bad shoes and not drunk enough water. For a few suspended seconds, I forgot. Then my hand found my phone on the nightstand. 79 new notifications. My stomach dropped, but this time the dread felt muted, like a bruise instead of an open wound. I scrolled. Voicemails from Mom, the duration bar shrinking as the night went on. The first was teary and high-pitched. "I don't understand why you'd hurt your brother like this, Lex." The fifth was sharp and clipped. You will call me back, young lady. The last was flat, exhausted. You made your choice. Don't expect us to keep covering for you. Dad's were shorter, angrier, fewer words, more impact. This is childish. What did you say to Megan? You humiliated us. Adam's texts were a mess of question marks and exclamation points. Adam, you know how this makes me look? Adam, you could have just come up here for an hour. Adam, I told everyone you'd fix it. This is on you. Underneath all of it, a single message from Megan. Megan, call me whenever you want, not when they want. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. Ethan rolled over, his arm flopping onto my stomach. You up? He mumbled. Unfortunately, I said. He opened one eye and squinted at me. And? They're mad, I said. Very, very mad. He pushed himself up on an elbow, hair sticking up, hotel sheet creased across his cheek. And are they bleeding? He asked. On fire? In jail? I huffed a laugh despite the lump in my throat. Just their pride, I said. He nodded. Then it can wait, he said. We have a breakfast buffet to demolish and a flight to catch. Honeymoons first, tantrums? Maybe never. I should have felt selfish. Instead, I felt relief. Like I'd finally dropped a rucksack I didn't remember picking up. Honeymoon sand felt different from desert sand. Warm instead of blistering. Fine instead of gritty. It got between my toes instead of under my body armor. We lay on loungers under a faded blue umbrella, the ocean hissing softly at the shoreline. Sunscreen and salt and distant grilled fish smelled like somebody else's life. My phone stayed in the safe. For 5 days, the only buzzing I paid attention to was the blender at the pool bar. We snorkeled. We slept too late. We argued amiably about whether sea turtles or manta rays were cooler. At night, when the resort grew quiet and my body finally stopped humming, the old reflexes crept back. Check your messages. Fix what you can. Plan your apology. Don't, Ethan would murmur, catching my hand when it drifted toward my bag. You turned it off. Give yourself a week before you turn yourself back on for them. So I did. Instead of composing texts to my mother, I outlined grant proposals in my head. Instead of replaying imaginary arguments with Dad, I thought about the waiting room chairs in our rural clinic and how they squeaked every time a patient shifted from one numb butt cheek to the other. There were things I could fix that actually mattered. On the flight home, somewhere over Georgia, I finally powered on my phone. 132 unread messages. Mom had cycled to the cold, silent treatment. Dad had pivoted from angry to offended to performatively wounded. Adam's texts had slowed, then stopped. Buried under all of it were 6 messages from my clinic coordinator about a new referral partnership, 3 emails from a regional health foundation about the grant application we'd submitted, and a note from a captain in my brigade thanking me for a telehealth recommendation that had kept one of his soldiers from falling through cracks. The difference between the 2 stacks hit me harder than any turbulence. One pile was noise, the other was actual lives. I sat there, tray table down, plastic cup of ginger ale sweating into my palm, and realized something simple and terrifying. For years, I'd treated both piles like they carried the same weight. They didn't. Back home in our tiny apartment that smelled like coffee and the basil plant wilting on the windowsill, I made a decision. I opened my parents' message threads. I scrolled to the top of the wedding day. Then I hit mute. No alerts, no buzzing, no more adrenaline surges every time my father sent a weaponized question mark. I didn't block them. I just took away the siren. No contact? Ethan asked, watching me from the doorway, dish towel slung over his shoulder. For now, I said. I can't stop them from talking, but I can stop myself from jumping every time they do. The first week felt like weaning off a drug. I'd reach for my phone in clinic between patients, expecting to see some new crisis. All that greeted me was a boring lock screen, appointment reminders, weather, a text from a medic in my unit sending me a photo of his new baby. The second week, it felt quieter. I heard my patients more clearly. The waiting room smelled like cheap coffee and hand sanitizer, the sound of cartoons leaking from someone's phone as a toddler entertained herself in the corner. That was real life. That was my lane. I heard what your family did, one of my nurses said one afternoon, when the last patient had left and we were wiping down the exam tables. The vinyl squeaked under the bleach wipes. Small towns, I said. Faster than Wi-Fi. She snorted. Just so you know, she said, if mine ever pulled that, I'd burn the whole tree down. Tempting, I admitted. But, she went on, you did something better. You came back here. You didn't disappear. I hadn't thought of it that way. In the months that followed, I disappeared from my parents' narrative, but not from my own. We opened a satellite clinic in a county where the only OBGYN had retired. We piloted a telehealth program for guard spouses out on farms too far from specialists. I sat at my desk in the evenings, the glow of my laptop turning Ethan's sleeping face on the couch into a soft silhouette, and wrote grant language until my eyes blurred. When the email came in, federal funding approved, Women's Rural Health Initiative. I screamed so loudly, the upstairs neighbor texted to ask if we were okay. You did it, Ethan said, lifting me off the ground in the middle of our cluttered living room. A stack of journal articles toppled, scattering across the floor. We did it, I corrected. We celebrated by buying a second-hand porch swing for the tiny craftsman house we closed on 6 months after the wedding. A scraped-up, chipped paint beauty with crooked floors and a front yard full of dandelions. We spent weekends sanding, painting, arguing about paint colors. The house smelled like sawdust, fresh coffee, and the cheap candle I kept lighting in the entryway to hide the lingering scent of the previous owner's cigarettes. On the fridge, I pinned the local newspaper article someone left at the clinic. Women leading change. Army captain brings vital care to forgotten counties. The photo was unflattering, me squinting against the sun, hair in a ponytail, stethoscope crooked. But my eyes looked steady. Present. That more than any carefully posed family Christmas card felt like proof that I existed. My parents didn't call. I didn't either. Adam posted engagement photos on social media. Rooftop sunsets, champagne flutes, Tara's ring-catching light. No mention of me. That was fine. He could curate his life. I was busy building mine. It took almost a year for the next thing to land. One Tuesday, the mail slot clattered while I was balancing a spreadsheet on one knee and a bowl of reheated leftovers on the other. Hun, mail! Ethan called from the front hall. He walked into the kitchen with a stack of envelopes, smelling faintly of paper and cold air. Bills, junk, more junk, he said, flicking through. And this one from the county clerk's office. My stomach did that old drop again. Government envelopes weren't usually social calls. Work? He asked. Probably, I said, wiping my hands and taking it. The paper was thick, official. I slid a finger under the seal and tore it open. Inside, a notice about an upcoming county board hearing. Subject: Request for noise permit exception. Whitmore Events, LLC. Owner Adam Whitmore. Harmless enough. My eyes slid down the page, then stopped. Applicant has listed Captain Alexis Turner as a character reference, the form read. It went on. Whose endorsement is provided as evidence of positive community impact and responsible operation. My own name in my brother's handwriting stared up at me from the scanned application attached. He hadn't asked. He hadn't called. He'd just written me in, assuming, as always, that my credibility was his to spend. My phone started buzzing on the counter. A new text from an unknown number. Unknown. Hi, Lex, this is Tara. Adam said you can speak at the hearing. We're so grateful you'll help us out. Something in me went very, very still. Ethan watched my face change. What? He asked. I held up the paper. He listed me, I said, as a character reference for his wedding venue without asking. Ethan's eyebrows shot up. And Tara just texted, I added, like it's a done deal. Heat crawled up my neck. A year ago, I would have sighed, cursed, and then showed up to save the day. Now, a different thought floated up, calm and clear. You do not owe them your name. The county hearing was in 2 weeks, in a fluorescent-lit community center, not a church. They'd put my name on the line in a space that didn't belong to them. Maybe it was time to let my voice live there too. Are you going? Ethan asked quietly. Yes, I said, surprising myself with how steady it sounded. But not for the reason they think. For the second time, I wasn't going to sprint toward a fire with a bucket. I was going to walk into a public room, step up to a podium that smelled like old coffee and floor wax, and say something my family had never heard from me in front of witnesses. No. And just like the night I left my phone dark while they melted down on a rooftop, I had no idea how much that single syllable would change the map of our lives. But I knew this much. If they wanted to drag my name into a public forum, they were finally going to hear it from me. The community center always smelled like old coffee and floor wax. I'd been there a dozen times in uniform, presenting clinic outcomes, answering questions about guard families, standing at the same podium to beg for funding with charts and mortality data. The carpet was the same dull blue worn thin near the door. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, buzzing just enough to make you wonder if they were about to burn out but never actually doing you the favor. The night of the hearing, I walked in wearing my navy blazer and a simple white blouse, not dress whites or camo. I wanted them to see me as what I was here, a citizen, a director, a woman with a voice, not a daughter on trial. Captain Turner, the board chair, Mrs. Hargrove, called from the front. Nice to see you. We have your clinic progress report on the docket next month. Her smile was warm, familiar. You too, I said. Tonight, I'm just an interested party. Her gaze flicked to the agenda in her hand. I see that, she said. We'll get to you. I took a seat in the back row. From here, the podium looked smaller, less intimidating. Just a wooden box with a microphone taped halfway up and a water stain ringing the base where someone had once set their cup down too hard. Ethan slid into the chair beside me, the faint smell of soap and machine oil clinging to his jacket. He squeezed my knee under the table. You sure? He whispered. No, I said honestly, but I'm here anyway. Board members trickled in, carrying folders and reusable water bottles, their shoes squeaking on the waxed floor. A few of them waved when they saw me, people who'd sat through my PowerPoints about prenatal care and rural suicidality. They knew me as data and relentless follow-ups, not as the daughter who always made the Whitmore's crises disappear. It felt like armor. 5 minutes before the start time, the door at the front swung open. Adam walked in like it was a launch event. Slim navy suit, hair product, the same watch he'd flashed at my engagement dinner. Tara floated behind him in a perfectly neutral dress, the kind you could wear to a church or a pitch meeting without changing shoes. Their perfume, sharp, floral, reached me even in the back row. Behind them, like ghosts I'd conjured by thinking too hard, came my parents. Mom's pearls, Dad's jaw set tight, both in that particular suburban formal they deployed for fundraisers and funerals. For a second, my breath caught. I'd imagined this reunion 100 ways. None of them had been under fluorescent lights, with a municipal seal on the wall behind their heads. Mom scanned the room, eyes sliding right past me. Her hair was sprayed into place so hard it didn't move when she turned. Dad's gaze snagged on me just for an instant, like a plane catching a thermal. Surprised, thrown off. I held his stare, then looked away deliberately, back to the agenda on the table in front of me. They weren't the center of this room. Not anymore. They took seats in the front row directly behind the speaker's table, close enough to the board to manage expressions and stage whisper corrections if things didn't go their way. Old habits. Adam glanced back, noticed me, and froze for half a beat. His hand tightened around his leather portfolio. Then his face rearranged itself into the practiced, everything's fine smile I'd seen in 1,000 Instagram posts. He gave me a tiny wave, as if we were at a BBQ and he'd just spotted me over the potato salad. I didn't wave back. Mrs. Hargrove banged the gavel. All right, folks, she said. We'll start with item 3 on the agenda, since that's what most of you are here for. Noise permit exception request for Whitmore Events, LLC. Adam stood, buttoning his jacket like he was about to give a TED Talk. He and Tara moved to the table, papers neatly stacked, a trifold display board with mock-ups of rooftop string lights and happy couples tucked under Adam's arm. He set it up against the wall, facing the board. The pictures showed generic, beautiful people laughing under bouquet lights. None of them looked like me. Good evening, Adam began, voice smooth. Thank you for your time. We're very excited to bring a high-quality event space to our town. We've renovated the historic Bellevue building. He launched into his pitch jobs, tourism, putting us on the map. Tara chimed in with carefully rehearsed notes about family values and creating memories. I'd seen this performance before, at fundraisers, at office parties, at our own dinner table. They were good at it. They framed the noise exception as a small thing, a reasonable request, extending outdoor music by 1 hour on weekends. Just 60 minutes, they kept saying. Just a sliver. And we're not just asking you to take our word for it, Adam concluded. We've brought letters and references from respected community members, including my sister, Captain Alexis Turner, who runs the women's health clinics you recently approved for expansion. Mrs. Hargrove flipped through the file. Her brow furrowed. I see your sister's name here, she said slowly. But I don't see a letter. It's just listed. Did we miss a page? My heart kicked. Adam's smile tightened. Well, he said, we didn't want to burden her with more paperwork while she's saving lives. He produced a smaller stack of glossy postcards, sliding them toward the board like chips. But she's obviously in favor. She wouldn't be here otherwise. Whispers rustled through the room as several heads turned toward the back row. Mrs. Hargrove followed their gaze. Her eyes landed on me. Captain Turner, she said, voice carrying. Would you like to speak to that? Suddenly, the humming lights felt louder. Every face in the room turned my way. Mom's knuckles whitened on her clutch. Dad's jaw flexed. Adam looked like a man watching a coin he'd flipped hang in the air longer than expected. Ethan's hand found mine under the table. You don't have to, he murmured. He was right, I didn't. But not standing up would say something all by itself, that my name was theirs to use, that my silence meant consent, that the old rules still applied. I stood. The metal chair scraped the linoleum, loud in the quiet. My heels clicked on the floor as I walked down the aisle, the faint smell of coffee and old paint wrapping around me like a familiar coat. Adam's eyes tracked me the whole way. So did my parents. At the front, the podium waited. The wood was nicked at the edges, worn smooth where countless hands had gripped it. There was a faint ring from an old coffee cup staining the top. I stepped behind it. The mic smelled like dust. Captain Turner, Mrs. Hargrove said again, softer now. Do you wish to speak as a reference? I leaned in just enough for my voice to carry. I was listed without my knowledge, I said, and I cannot provide a reference for this request. The words left my mouth like a scalpel. Small, sharp, precise. For a heartbeat, the room didn't react. Then the murmurs started. From the corner of my eye, I saw Mom's hand fly to her chest. Dad's mouth fell open. Adam took a step toward the table. Lex, he said, incredulous. The microphone picked up his whisper, sending it across the room. What are you doing? The old part of me, the one trained to hear, what did you do as proof I'd made a mistake, flinched. The new part remembered the empty rows at my wedding, the buzzing phone, the rooftop narrative I hadn't written. I'm choosing not to save this for you, I said plainly into the mic. A couple of board members exchanged looks. I heard someone in the back, one of my clinic volunteers, suck in a breath. Excuse me? Adam said, louder now. His charm cracked around the edges. You're trying to ruin our business before it even... I'm not trying to ruin anything, I cut in, keeping my tone level. I'm simply not going to spend my credibility on something I know nothing about. I wasn't consulted. I haven't seen your operations plan. You put my name on a government form like it was a decorative bow. Mrs. Hargrove's mouth twitched despite herself. Captain Turner, she said carefully. Are you speaking as a private citizen or in your capacity as a clinic director? Both, I said. As a soldier, as a clinician, and as the person whose name was used without consent. The word consent hung in the air like a dropped plate. I saw at least 3 people wince. Behind me, Mom hissed under her breath, Don't air dirty laundry. I turned my head just enough that she could see my profile. For 30 years, I said, voice still into the mic, my family has expected me to fix problems I did not create and absorb consequences I did not choose. I'm here to say that pattern stops with me. I'm not making a statement about your venue. I'm making one about my boundaries. You could have heard a pin drop on the scuffed linoleum. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my hands were steady on the podium. This board knows my work, I went on. You've read my reports. You've seen me bring you numbers tied to real people. If I endorse something, it's because I've vetted it. I can't say that here. So my name shouldn't be in this file. I looked directly at the chair. With respect, I finished. Please consider my presence tonight as a correction to the application. Remove my name. Mrs. Hargrove nodded slowly. Understood, she said. Thank you, Captain Turner. I stepped back from the mic. Adam's face had gone blotchy, anger and disbelief vying for space. You just made this so much harder than it had to be, he muttered. For once, I didn't rush to smooth the edges. That's your story to tell, I said quietly. Not mine. I walked back up the aisle, the room's eyes hot on my back, the smell of floor wax stronger near the door. As I sat down next to Ethan, my heart still pounding in my throat, I realized something. For the first time in our lives, in a room where my family had assumed the board would bend to their charm and my silence, I'd used a microphone for myself, not to praise them, not to defend them, not to salvage their image, just to draw a line. However the board voted next, whatever my parents said on the porch later, that line existed now, in public, in the record. I laced my fingers through Ethan's under the table and exhaled slowly as Mrs. Hargrove shuffled papers and turned back to my brother. All right, Mr. Whitmore, she said briskly. Given that clarification, we'll proceed with questions. You've requested we extend the noise ordinance for your rooftop venue. Why exactly should we? The smallest smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. For once, I wasn't standing between Adam and the consequences. He was on his own. Once I sat down, it felt like the whole room exhaled and then sucked the air right back in. Mrs. Hargrove shuffled Adam's application, buying herself a second to reorder the moment. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a flat sheen over his glossy, mock-up photos of couples who weren't me, laughing under string lights. Thank you, Captain Turner, she said again, then turned to my brother. Mr. Whitmore, given that your sister has clarified she did not consent to being listed as a reference, we'll evaluate this on its own terms. Please be ready for questions. Adam's smile had gone brittle around the edges. Of course, he said, but his voice cracked on the last word. A board member in a plaid blazer, Mr. Jenkins, who'd once grilled me for 15 minutes about parking access at my clinic, leaned forward. You're asking to extend outdoor amplified music until midnight, he said. That's 2 hours past the current ordinance. Have you spoken to residents living within a block of your venue? Adam laughed lightly. We've had great feedback, he said. People are excited. The city needs more nightlife. Jenkins raised an eyebrow. Any documented support? He pressed. Letters? Signatures? Adam glanced at Tara. She flipped through their folder, lips pressing together. We focused on the business plan, she said. Jenkins nodded slowly, then shuffled his own papers. I see half a dozen noise complaints on file from your test events, he said. One from a nursing home. One from a family with a newborn. How do you propose we reconcile that with your request? The air in the room shifted. At the back, I felt my shoulders loosen a fraction. This was familiar terrain. Questions, data, consequences. Not gossip, not spin. We addressed those concerns, Adam said quickly. We turned down the speakers. And were any of those neighbors informed of your plan to seek an exemption? Another board member asked. A woman in a blue cardigan who'd once cried at my presentation about maternal mortality. Given that you were going to use their nights for profit? Adam's jaw clenched. We're bringing jobs, he said. Economic growth. That matters too. It does, Mrs. Hargrove agreed. So does sleep. She tapped the folder. I also note, she added, that the only community reference listed is your sister, whose name was used without consent. That does not inspire confidence in your understanding of transparency. Mom's lips thinned. She leaned forward, stage whispering loud enough for the mic to pick up. This is all a misunderstanding. Lex is emotional right now. Mrs. Hargrove lifted a hand without looking at her. Mrs. Whitmore, she said, public comment will come later. For now, your son is the applicant. The tiny rebuke landed like a slap. I watched my mother flinch. Adam shifted from foot to foot, some of the shine wearing off. My father sat back, arms crossed, mouth a hard line. The board went a few more rounds. Decibel levels, security plans, the impact on the neighborhood. Each question poked new holes in Adam's well-practiced pitch. Without me there to plaster over them, the gaps showed. When they finally opened the floor for public comment, two people stepped up to the podium. Mrs. Clark, who lived directly below the rooftop, spoke first. The mic made her voice crackle. "I like music as much as anyone," she said. "But my husband works nights at the mill. I work days. We're both exhausted. The last test party, we could feel the bass in our bed." A few people nodded. Next came Mr. Hernandez, father of the newborn. "I got nothing against love or weddings," he said. "But my kid finally falls asleep at 10. Last time you had a DJ, he cried until 2. If you want to party that late, rent a field. Don't make our house your speaker box." He stepped away from the mic, hands trembling slightly. Adam's smile had long since faded. When no one else came forward, Mrs. Hargrove called for a short recess so the board could deliberate. The room buzzed in low voices. Mom spun around in her chair to glare at me, eyes bright and wet. "How could you?" she hissed under the murmur. "In front of everyone?" My heart thumped, but my voice came out calm. "I told the truth," I said. "In a room where truth matters." "You made us look like we raised a monster," she snapped. "You did that when you skipped my wedding and told people I sabotaged his engagement," I replied quietly. "This is just the first time the room can hear my side." Mom's mouth opened and closed. No tidy comeback this time. Dad leaned in, voice low and sharp. "You could have talked to us first," he said. "Handled this privately, like family." I met his eyes. "I tried talking," I said. "You scheduled a party over my vows. You skipped the private conversations. The public space is where your choices landed. I'm just standing where you put my name." He stared at me for a long beat, breathing hard. Then he faced forward again, jaw working. At the front, the board members returned, file folders in hand. Mrs. Hargrove lifted the gavel. "All right," she said. "We've reviewed the application, the complaints on record, and the comments tonight." The room quieted. You could hear the AC kick on, a low mechanical hum in the ceiling. "Whitmore Events, LLC is requesting a noise ordinance exception to operate rooftop amplified music until midnight on weekends," she read. "Based on the pattern of complaints, the lack of documented neighborhood support, and the concerns about misrepresentation regarding references, the board denies the request." There it was. No drama, no yelling, just a clean official no. Adam's shoulders dropped like someone had cut strings. Tara's hand flew to her mouth. Mom made a soft, wounded sound. Dad's face flushed red, an angry tide rising from his collar to his scalp. "However," Mrs. Hargrove added, "we're open to reconsideration in the future if there is evidence of sustained positive relationship with neighbors and compliance with existing ordinances. For now, the denial stands." She banged the gavel. "Next item," she said briskly, "parking variance for the county fair. Those goats don't move themselves." A ripple of laughter broke the tension. Just like that, my family's crisis shrank to its actual size. One agenda item among many in a town full of people with their own problems. I gathered my bag. Ethan rose beside me. As we slipped down the side aisle toward the exit, I could feel my father's glare burning between my shoulder blades. We stepped into the hallway where the air smelled like dust and ancient bulletin board cork. Outside the glass doors, dusk had settled in, cool and damp. The parking lot glowed under orange sodium lights, mist gathering in the low spots. "Do you want to stay?" Ethan asked. "Let them find you here?" "No," I said, "not for the first swing." We walked out into the night, the concrete cool through my flats. My breath steamed in front of me. Behind us, through the glass, I saw my parents and Adam swarm the board table, hands moving, faces animated. It looked like every post-church argument we'd ever had, just in business casual instead of Sunday best. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Ethan glanced at me. "You don't have to," he said. "I know," I replied. I didn't take it out. We climbed into the truck, the seats cold against my legs. the faint smell of French fries lingering from last weekend's road trip. As we pulled out of the lot, I watched the community center shrink in the side mirror. One building, one hearing, one clean, quiet choice not to fix what I didn't break. My father's text still sat unanswered from a year ago. What did you do? Tonight, I finally knew the answer. Not in words I'd send him, but in the way my hands felt steady on my knees, in the way my lungs filled without hitching. What did I do? Nothing for them, something for me. I went home. I ate leftovers at my kitchen table under the soft hum of our crooked ceiling fan. I loaded the dishwasher. I stepped out onto the porch and sat on the swing we'd hung ourselves, the chains creaking as I rocked. In the yard, fireflies winked in the high grass like tiny, stubborn lanterns. My phone buzzed again inside. I let it. For 31 years, their emergencies had been my marching orders. Tonight, the only rhythm I moved to was the slow squeak of the swing and the beat of my own heart settling into a new cadence. You are not the janitor. You are not the scapegoat. You are the woman who stood at a podium and said no. I didn't know that before the sun came up, there'd be a knock on my door loud enough to rattle the glass. But I did know this much as I watched the fireflies blink on and off like tiny affirmations. Whatever came next, I wasn't going back. They knocked like they owned the place. 3 hard raps that rattled the stained glass panel Ethan had installed in the front door, cutting through the sound of the dishwasher and the low murmur of whatever cooking show he'd fallen asleep to on the couch. I was on the porch swing, wrapped in a sweatshirt and a travel blanket, watching my breath fog in the cool air and the streetlight turn the mist over the lawn into a pale halo. The swing creaked under me, metal chains complaining softly with each rock. The knock came again, this time with a familiar rhythm. Dad's. Ethan's head popped around the doorframe, hair mussed, eyes soft with sleep. You expecting anyone? He asked. No, I said. The word sat heavy in my chest, but I know who it is. He studied me for a moment. Want me to get it? He asked. No, I repeated. I need to. I stood, blanket sliding off my lap, bare feet hitting the cold wood of the porch. The boards creaked in the spots we hadn't gotten around to fixing yet. When I opened the door, the smell hit me first. Perfume, cold air, and the faint tang of stress sweat under expensive deodorant. Mom stood on the mat, mascara smeared in arcs under her eyes, lipstick worn off at the corners. Dad was behind her, shoulders squared like he was walking into a briefing, not his daughter's house. Adam hovered a step back, suit rumpled, tie loosened. We need to talk, Mom blurted, voice already trembling. A year ago, that sentence would have triggered a full-body adrenaline rush. Tonight, my heart thumped, but my pulse didn't spike. Then come in, I said. For a conversation, not a performance. They filed past me, bringing chill and the smell of their car's air freshener into the warm, slightly cluttered living room. The house suddenly felt smaller, every imperfect corner exposed. Ethan had straightened up the coffee table earlier, but there were still grant drafts scattered on the sideboard, a half-finished crocheted blanket in a basket, a toy stethoscope one of my patients had left by mistake. My life, messy, real. Mom's gaze flitted over it all, like she was mentally staging it for better photos. Dad stayed standing. Adam sank onto the edge of the armchair like a man waiting for a verdict. Ethan closed his laptop quietly and stood next to me, not in front of me. You saw blindsided us, Mom said, dispensing with pleasantries. At that meeting, her voice cracked on blindsided, like she was the one who'd been hit by a truck. You listed me on a legal document without asking, I said. I corrected the record. That's not blindsiding. That's consent. Dad's jaw clenched. You embarrassed us, he snapped, in front of the entire board. You made us look like what? I asked. Like people who use someone's credibility without permission. Because that's what happened. He opened his mouth, closed it. Adam shifted, hands clenching between his knees. I thought you'd show up like always, he said, not looking at me. Say something nice. Smooth it over. You always make things easy. The admission hit me harder than the accusation. There it was, spoken out loud, not character assassination. A confession. I know, I said. That's the problem. You built your plans assuming I'd show up to patch the holes. Mom made a choke sound. We raised you better than this, she said. Family first. My hand tightened around the edge of the kitchen doorway. You skipped my wedding, I said, letting the words land one by one. You scheduled a party over it. You told people I was jealous. You expected me to leave my own reception to do the right thing and stand on your rooftop. That wasn't family first. That was you first. Silence. The heater kicked on with a low groan, air whispering through the vents. No one forced you to pick that date, Mom protested weakly. You knew Adam was looking at venues. I booked my date a year in advance, I replied. You said you'd make it work. Your idea of that was to pretend my wedding was a scheduling inconvenience. Dad shifted his weight from one foot to the other. The leather of his belt creaked. We were under pressure, he said. Investors, expectations. We thought you'd understand. I understood, I said. I understood I came second. Again. Their faces flickered in the lamplight, hurt, defensive, bewildered. I didn't come here to list my accomplishments, I went on. You know what I do. You may not understand it or respect it, but you know it exists. What you don't seem to understand is the way you've used me. Dad's chin jerked up. Used, he repeated. Yes, I said. My voice stayed flat, calm. As free labor. As the one who shows up early and stays late. As the person you brag about when it plays well and ignore when it doesn't. As a human shield for Adam's bad decisions. As a name you can drop on forms and in rooms where you want credibility. Mom's eyes filled. That's not fair, she said. I thought of empty rows at my ceremony, of her telling guests I'd scheduled my wedding out of jealousy, of the text in all caps. What did you do? I'm not here to be fair, I said. I'm here to be honest. Adam finally looked up. His eyes were red, not just from anger. I listed you because people like you, he said. They listen to you. I just thought you'd show up like always and say something about how I'm a good guy and how we're all good guys don't use someone's name without asking, I said gently. Good brothers don't make their sisters choose between their own vows and his party. They don't expect endless forgiveness because they've always gotten it. He stared at the carpet. I thought you'd never really leave, he admitted. You're the one who comes back. The one who fixes. I took a breath. For a moment, old scripts tugged at me. This is your chance to heal it all. Be gracious. Make it easy. Then I thought of my clinics, my patients, the staffers who counted on me to be the kind of leader who didn't ignore the truth just because it made things awkward. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm protecting myself. Mom shifted on the couch, the cushions squeaking. What do you want us to do? She asked, tears finally spilling. We're here, we're trying. We're sorry. The word looked strange on her face, like a borrowed coat. I watched her for a long moment. I want you to stop rewriting the past, I said. Stop telling people I ruined your party. Stop pretending you forgot my wedding date. Stop talking about me like I'm a jealous child when I've spent my adult life building something that has nothing to do with your image. They swallowed that in silence. And, Dad asked, voice raspy. And I want you to stop expecting me to clean up your messes, I said. If you choose a date that violates a noise ordinance, you deal with the consequences. If you lie to your friends about what happened with my wedding, you sit in the discomfort when they find out the truth. I can't keep standing between you and the fallout from your own choices. It's killing me. Mom's shoulders shook. We were wrong, she whispered. About the wedding. About the party. About tonight. We didn't think about what we were asking of you. We just went back to the pattern. She glanced up at me, eyes raw. You have done so much, she said. For us, for everyone. We just took it because that's what we do, and I'm sorry. Dad didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, his voice was low. I told people you were overreacting, he said, that you made a big deal out of nothing. I told myself you were going through a phase, but we skipped our daughter's wedding to drink cocktails on a rooftop. There's no version of that that isn't ugly. He cleared his throat. I'm sorry, he said. The words were rough, reluctant, but they were there. I'm sorry I made you the default adult in this family and then resented you for it. The living room hummed with the radiator and the distant whoosh of a car passing on our street. What do we do now? Adam asked softly. I thought of easy answers. We start over, we hug it out, we pretend none of this happened. They tugged at my tongue. I didn't let them out. We don't do anything tonight, I said. Tonight, we let it sit. You go home. You think about what you've heard. You start by telling the truth to the people you lied to about me. Not for my image, for your integrity. Mom nodded, a jerky little motion. Dad stared at his shoes. And us? Adam pressed. You and me? I looked at my brother, suit wrinkled, eyes rimmed, the golden boy with a dented halo. That depends on what you do when I'm not cleaning up after you, I said quietly. I'm not shutting the door, but I'm not handing you a mop either. A long silence. Is there anything we can say? Mom whispered. That would make you forgive us? The question landed in the middle of the room, hopeful and heavy. I let it sit there. I don't know yet, I said. Forgiveness isn't a line you recite. It's something I might get to someday, or not. And if I do, it'll be for me, not to spare you consequences. Her face crumpled. But I held up a hand. You asked what I wanted? I said. I want honesty. I want you to stop asking me to pretend for you. I want you to respect my no as much as you've expected me to honor your every whim. And I want time. Dad nodded slowly, eyes glassy. You'll let us know if you want to talk again? He asked. Yes, I said. When I'm ready. Not when you panic. The couch creaked as Mom stood. She took a step toward me, hands half raised like she might hug me, then stopped herself. Okay, she whispered. It wasn't a dramatic cinematic moment. No slow motion embrace, no swelling music, just a single word, a crack in a wall 3 decades thick. Thank you for coming to the hearing, I added, and for not yelling there. Dad huffed a humorless laugh. Did enough yelling on the drive over, he said. He glanced at Ethan for the first time. You've taken good care of her, he said stiffly. Thank you. Ethan nodded. She takes care of herself, he said. I just stand where she asks me to. Dad looked like he didn't quite know what to do with that. He settled for a nod. They shuffled toward the door. On the threshold, Mom turned back. Lex, she said. Yeah? We did abandon you, she said. The admission shook. On your wedding day, I will hate myself for that as long as I live. The words sliced through me. Old Lex would have rushed to soothe. You didn't know. It's okay. I'm fine. New Lex swallowed, felt the hurt and the strange, clean honesty of it at the same time. Good, I said quietly. Then maybe we won't repeat it. Her eyes filled again. She nodded once, then stepped out into the night, coat collar pulled tight. The door clicked shut behind them, the sound small in the quiet. For a long moment, I just stood with my palm flat on the cool wood, feeling my pulse in my fingertips. Ethan came up beside me, his shoulder brushing mine. You okay? He asked. I don't know, I said. But I'm not worse. That's something, he said. We went back to the porch. The swing groaned as I sat. The air smelled like damp leaves and distant chimney smoke. My phone buzzed on the coffee table inside, probably Megan or a board member or some automated reminder. I didn't scramble for it. I rocked slowly, the chain squeaking, the night wrapping around us. For the first time in my life, my parents had walked into my space and said we were wrong without me prompting them, without me cushioning their fall. It didn't erase anything, but it meant the next chapters, if they existed, wouldn't be written in the old handwriting. Do you regret going to the hearing? Ethan asked softly. I looked at the street, the faint shine of the county's seal still imprinted in my mind over the podium. Not for a second, I said. Out here, under our own string of cheap patio lights and the occasional blink of a firefly, The board's denial letter meant less than the simple, quiet fact that my no had finally landed somewhere other than my own chest. What came next would be slower, messier, less public. But as the swing creaked and the night settled, I realized that the hardest part wasn't them showing up at my door. It was me opening it and not surrendering the house I'd built, physically, emotionally, legally. I'd stayed standing, even when they asked, again, what I'd done. And for the first time, my answer had been not an apology, but a boundary. They left a hollow quiet behind them. After the door clicked shut, I sat on the floor with my back against it, palms flat on the cool wood, feeling the hum of the refrigerator and the faint rattle of the vents. The house smelled like dish soap and the citrus candle I'd lit before the hearing. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. One new text from Mom. Mom, thank you for hearing us. We want to do better. Can we talk again? The cursor blinked in the reply box, a tiny metronome counting out decades of old answers. Of course, Mom. I'm sorry too. What can I do? None of those fit anymore. I stood, walked over, and picked up the phone. Ethan watched me from the couch, expression open, not steering. I typed slowly. Me. Not today, but someday. One step at a time. I hit send before I could soften it. No emoji, no exclamation points. Just a small, clear door cracked open. The delivery checkmark appeared. For once, I didn't stand there waiting to see if they were typing back. I put the phone face down. Life didn't explode or transform overnight. It just went on. Clinic on Mondays, logistics calls on Tuesdays, drill weekends, staff meetings, late night charting. The regular rhythm of service, paperwork, and human bodies that needed more care than the system was built to give. If anything, the confrontation with my family sharpened my sense of what was mine to carry and what wasn't. When a hospital administrator tried to push extra work onto my nurses because they're so good at stepping up, I heard my mother's voice in it and said, "No, that's not sustainable." When a patient apologized for being a burden because her appointment ran over, I heard my brother's implied, "You're making things harder than they need to be," and said, "You're not a burden. You're the reason we're here." On our porch swing, under evenings that smelled like cut grass and rain, I practiced not answering my phone every time it buzzed. I learned to let texts sit, sometimes for hours, sometimes overnight. Mom sent intermittent messages, small, tentative. Mom, thinking of you today. Mom, saw your article in the paper. We're proud. That feels new to say. Dads were rarer. Dad, I told someone at the store about your clinics. It felt strange in a good way. Adam sent one-liners every few weeks. Adam, the venue is still open. No late music. We adjusted. Adam, Tara's thinking about volunteering at your event. Would that be weird? I answered some. Ignored others. The point wasn't to punish them. It was to practice the radical idea that my time and energy belonged to me first. Ethan watched it all quietly, sometimes reaching for my hand when he saw my thumb hover too long over a message. Check your bandwidth, he'd say, not just your conscience. Meanwhile, the nonprofit grew. The federal grant hit our account. We hired 2 more nurse practitioners and a social worker who swore more than any sailor I'd ever met, but got teenage girls to talk about things they'd never say in front of their parents. Our 5th anniversary snuck up on me. One day, I was signing papers in a cramped, borrowed office. The next, my staff was shoving a printed banner into my hands that read, 5 years of health, 5 years of hope. We're doing a thing, my coordinator Janelle announced. No arguments, food trucks, live music, within ordinance and speeches. I hate speeches, I said automatically. Too bad, she replied. You're making one. The permit application came across my desk as a formality. I smiled when I saw the note from Mrs. Hargrove stapled to the top. Approved. No exceptions needed. Keep the music to 10 and invite the board to dance. I pinned it next to the article on our fridge. The morning of the event, the field behind the community center looked like a pop-up village. Tents, folding tables, balloons tied to every vertical surface. Someone was grilling, someone else was setting up a cornhole game. Little kids chased each other between the legs of donors, volunteers, and women whose names I knew as diagnoses and now as faces. The air smelled like cotton candy, grilled onions, and wet grass. From the stage, the banner rippled slightly in the breeze. 5 years of health, 5 years of hope. At the edge of the field, our porch swing at home felt very far away and very close at the same time. Ready? Ethan asked, adjusting the speaker wires. His t-shirt had our logo across the chest, smeared with a streak of paint from hanging signs. No, I said, but I'm here. He kissed my forehead. That's all anyone needs, he said. The rest is just frosting. I laughed. Lemon raspberry flashed through my mind, then faded. I stepped up onto the plywood stage, mic in hand, heart thumping. Faces turned toward me. Patients, staff, board members. Megan, waving from near the lemonade stand. In the back, near the tree line, I saw 3 familiar outlines. Mom in a simple sweater, hair less constructed than I'd ever seen it. Dad in a windbreaker, hands in his pockets. Adam holding 2 folding chairs and a plastic bag of something, probably snacks, knowing him. They weren't pushing forward. They weren't waving frantically. They were just there, on the perimeter, watching, waiting to see if there was room for them that didn't require them to stand at the center. I met their gaze for half a second. Then I turned back to the mic. 5 years ago, I began. This was an empty patch of grass behind a building that smelled like floor wax. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Now it's a place where women who used to drive 2 hours for an exam can get seen in 10 minutes, I continued. Where soldiers' wives aren't told to just wait it out when something feels wrong. Where teenage girls can say out loud what they're scared of. I glanced at the banner. At home, I added, there are people who still don't understand why I chose this instead of a more photogenic life. And there are people who do. You're the latter. More laughter. More nodding. I used to think my job in my family was to fix every crisis, I said. To run from fire to fire, making sure no one got burned too badly. The Army taught me something different. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let a fire burn where it belongs and build something better a safe distance away. I let that hang for a beat. Thank you, I finished, for standing here in this better with me. Applause rose, rough and loud and uneven, the way honest clapping always is. I stepped back, breathing hard, feeling the wood flex under my heels, the breeze cool on the back of my neck. Off stage, Janelle handed me a bottle of water and a hug that crushed the air out of me. You did good, boss, she said. Now go eat something before you fall over. I wandered toward the taco truck, accepting congratulations and jokes and questions about future programs. As I reached for a napkin, someone cleared their throat behind me. I turned. Dad stood there, hands empty. Expression. Small. Mom beside him, clutching her bag. Adam a step back, holding a grocery store bouquet like he wasn't sure what to do with his hands. Can we say hello? Dad asked. He didn't try to make it sound casual. Hi, I said. You made it. Mom smiled, quick and nervous. We stayed in the back, she said. We wanted to see, not hijack. Thank you, I said. She nodded at the banner. It's impressive, she said. What you've built. Dad's throat worked. I told Hargrove I was proud to be your father today, he said quietly. First time those words have felt accurate. I felt something twist and untwist inside me. I'm glad you came, I said. I'm not ready for holiday dinners yet. But this is okay. Relief flickered across Mom's face. It's okay, she said. We'll take okay. Adam stepped forward with the flowers. We brought these, he said sheepishly. I know they're cliché. Tara picked them. I took them. They smelled like grocery store roses and cellophane. Tell her thank you, I said. He nodded. I heard your speech, he added. About fires, I'm trying to get a handle on mine. He gestured vaguely toward the general direction of the city, of his venue, of the mess I'd stopped cleaning. I believed him, and I didn't. Both were okay. You'll figure it out, I said. Or you won't, that's on you. He winced, but there was no resentment in it this time. Fair, he said. We stood there for a moment in the late afternoon light, the smell of grilled onions and cut grass between us, the sounds of kids laughing, and a band tuning their instruments on stage. Then I gave them a small nod. An invitation. Not to step onto the stage, just to stay in the field. They accepted. They drifted to the sidelines, talking quietly with Megan, watching the kids run with face paint and balloon swords. They didn't pull focus. They didn't demand. They just existed in the world I'd built, as guests, not authors. I turned back toward the center of the field. Ethan was waving me over to where my nurses were trying to convince our most stoic OB to join a line dance. Captain Turner, someone called. We need you to show us how it's done. I laughed. Coming, I said. As I walked toward them, I felt my phone buzz in my back pocket. I didn't check it yet. For once, I knew what it would say without needing to see the screen. What did you do, Lex? I'd done something simple and impossible. I'd stopped being the fixer for people who broke me and started being the builder of something that didn't require their permission to stand. By the time the sun slipped behind the trees, the field glowed. String lights zigzagged overhead, catching in the steam rising from the food trucks and the breath of dancers. Fireflies stitched their own pattern in the tall grass beyond the tents, blinking in and out like Morse code from another world. The banner at the stage fluttered gently in the warm breeze. 5 years of health, 5 years of hope. A local band launched into a cover of an old song my mom liked. I saw her foot tap along in the shadow of a tree before she caught herself. I danced with patients who'd once limped into my clinic hunched over, with volunteers who'd shown up in snow and heat waves, with soldiers' spouses who'd sat in my office and sobbed until their shoulders shook, with Ethan, who spun me under the lights and whispered, "You're glowing, you know that?" "I'm sweaty," I said. "Same thing," he replied. At one point, I stepped away to catch my breath and found myself near the edge of the field, the music a little softer, the air cooler. From here, that I could see it all at once, and the stage, the banner, the kids chasing each other in the half-dark, the board members nursing cups of punch. My parents and Adam, still near the periphery, chairs unfolded now, paper plates on their laps, watching more than talking. No one was looking at them. No one was asking what they thought of the event. For the first time, that didn't feel like an indictment. It felt like balance. My phone buzzed again. I checked it this time. A text from Mom. Mom, that speech. We're proud of you, Lex. Not just tonight. I'm sorry it took me too long to say it. I stared at the words, the old ache flaring and then retreating. I typed. Me. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. I left it at that. Another text came in. From Dad. Dad. The board lady asked if I was Dr. Turner's father. I said yes. That felt right. I smiled despite myself. Me. It's Captain, but I'll allow it. Ellipsis. Dad. Still learning. I slid the phone back into my pocket. Ethan appeared at my side with 2 plastic cups of lemonade. Deep breath? He asked. Yeah, I said. We stood there for a moment, the grass damp under our shoes, the air thick with music and laughter, and the faint scent of bug spray. You know, he said, when your dad texted, "What did you do?" That night, I wanted to grab your phone and write a 3-page essay. I bet, I said. I'm glad you didn't, I added. That was my answer to give. And you gave a good one, he said. Took a while, but still. I thought about that text now, 2 years and a world away. What did you do? The answer wasn't a courtroom speech or a grand revenge. It was this field, these tents, these people, this man next to me who loved me not because I bent myself into a Whitmore-shaped daughter, but because I stood up as Lex. It was the porch swing at home where my phone was allowed to buzz without dictating my heartbeat. It was the empty rose at my wedding that had hurt like hell, and the full life that had grown around that absence. This, I said quietly, gesturing at the field. This is what I did. Ethan followed my hand with his gaze. Yeah, he said, not a bad answer. The band shifted into a slow song. Couples drifted toward the center. Light pooled on the trampled grass. Ethan set our cups down on the edge of the stage and held out his hand. Dance with me, Captain Turner? I took it. Always, I said. We stepped into the light. My parents watched from the dark, small, and human and flawed. Not center stage, not erased. Somewhere down the line that there might be holidays with them again. Or there might not. Either way, I knew now that my worth didn't rise and fall based on whether they showed up. It rose and fell with the patients who could see a doctor because we existed. With the women who walked into my clinics and out again feeling a little less alone. With the quiet, stubborn part of me that had finally learned to say no and to mean it. The music wrapped around us. Ethan's hand was steady at my back. My shaved head wedding photo was tucked in a frame on our mantle at home, next to a new one from tonight. Me in a navy blazer under that banner, eyes clear. I'd spent a lifetime being the girl who dropped everything at the first buzz of a phone, the first panicked, "What did you do?" Now, when that question whispered up from old memory, I had an answer I could live with. I stopped cleaning up after people who kept breaking me. I built something of my own. I let the ones who truly wanted to be in my life walk toward it at my pace, not theirs. As the song ended and the crowd clapped, I rested my head briefly against Ethan's shoulder and felt the ground solid under my feet. The strongest revenge, I'd realized, wasn't the permit denied or the public no. It was this. A life I didn't have to ask permission to enjoy. A life that kept moving, with or without their chairs filled. A life where I wasn't the family fixer anymore, just a woman in uniform and in civilian clothes, standing tall in the middle of the field she'd planted herself. End.